I actually am a holistic or a certified holistic nutritionist, and I run a health and fitness website called thepuresweatproject.com. And so I'm a fitness instructor as well, and I'm also just a wife and a mom, and I'm kind of a nutrition nerd. And so I just kind of like to research a lot of different stuff. And so I get a lot of questions just from people on the fitness side and also on the nutrition side. And instead of messaging people back and forth, you know, one-on-one, it's easier to come on here and just give the information live. So hi Shirley, hi Ann, okay good, I'm glad it's working well. I also got one of these new ring lights for anybody else who does videos inside or that blogs. It's like this massive ring light. If you could see it, it like goes from all the way around. So I've been like playing with the lighting, so I hope it's not too bright for you guys. It's like, wow. But I wanted to come on here tonight. Let's do a health chat for you guys. Again, I'm always trying to do these as much as I can, and I never come on here claiming I'm some, you know, amazing expert, but I follow a lot of people that I truly enjoy, and I find them interesting and intriguing. And it's anywhere. It's from physicians in functional medicine to holistic medicine, all different avenues. I listen to a lot of different nutritionists, but a lot of the things I come on here and talk about are things that people message me and ask questions about. And so one of the questions that I got, it may not necessarily be nutrition focused, but it's something that someone asked about, and actually I have. And so I wanted to talk about it. And so tonight we're going to talk about the MTHFR gene mutation. Now, a lot of people may have heard this, they may have not heard this. I even got some comments down below before I started the video from Jennifer, from both Jennifers actually, talking about how they as well have, I think both of you guys had the double copy of this mutation. So we're going to talk about that, but it's something that I don't know that a lot of people know the ins and outs of. You know, we hear about this MTHFR gene mutation. It's kind of thrown around a little bit, but I don't think it's really discussed a lot in our traditional doctor offices. And so it's something that I felt like, hey, I'm going to answer this question. I've actually experienced it. I've had the blood test for it, and I actually have one of the copies of it, and I actually have the heterozygous version of it, of the copy A1298, and we're going to get into that and what that means later. But just so you guys know, I do have one of those copies and what that means for me and my family, passing possibly that on to our son. So let's get into it. Basically, this mutation gene affects the methylation of how our body is handling all the different functions. And again, I don't want to get too sciencey, because I feel like if I were to get down to like the actual terms and the codes and how everything processes, I would see like the numbers drop down to like 2, down to 1. And so I try to do these health chats using easy words to understand so that we all get the process. And I try not to make it too long, but sometimes I can talk a little bit longer. So if you are very sciencey, you're going to understand what I'm saying, and you'll kind of know why I'm kind of making it a more understandable format for this. And hi guys, I see you as you join on. Thanks for jumping on the video. So basically I had a blood test done. It was several years ago. I was having a lot of different symptoms in my body. Couldn't figure out what was going on. I actually went to a physician here in Oklahoma City who ran a blood panel test on me. And not only did she discover that I had leaky gut syndrome, which is actually not a blood test, but she did discover that within me. I also had adrenal fatigue syndrome, and then she ran a blood test on me and found out that I do have one of the copies of the MTHFR. So the MTHFR gene mutation, it's basically, we're going to talk about how it stands for the methyl tetrahydrofolate reductase. So say that 10 times fast and you'll start to get the hang of that word. But that's really what we're going to be talking about tonight. And so this methylation process is going to start with the topic of folate. So when we hear about folate, sometimes we might hear about B or the vitamin B9, or you even might hear about folic acid, which is really what a lot of us end up taking. Folic acid, especially for us mamas who are pregnant, we are told that we need folic acid. It helps obviously for a healthy pregnancy and prevents neural tube defects. But you also see it like in our big food world, there's enriched folate, really folic acid in our foods. So folic acid is actually a synthetic form of folate. So not saying that it's bad or anything, it's just saying it's a synthetic man-made version. So if you do not have the MTHFR gene mutation, your body can process that folic acid perfectly fine. And so for moms and like those that are pregnant, you're obviously going to take that folic acid and you're going to be able to process it the way that you're supposed to. What we run into with this topic of folate and folic acid is if you have the MTHFR mutation, your body cannot process the folic acid. Because it's a synthetic form, it actually has to be turned and basically go through a process to be methylated, to be broken down so that your body can absorb the true version of folate. So if you take someone like myself and I were to take a folic acid vitamin back, say when I was pregnant with my son, my body, now that I know I have that gene mutation, would not process that folic acid the way it's supposed to. And so really I would be lacking that important thing to have as a pregnant mom. Now, fortunately, I did already have that blood test, so I already knew that my body could not process it. So I had to go on a different form of methylated folate for myself to be able to process that. So that's one of the topics when you guys kind of hear about recurrent miscarriages, that actually does tie into this MTHFR gene mutation. That is thrown around a lot. One of it has to do with because of one of the copies is a more severe risk for it. But it's also just the common sense practice that if your body can't absorb the folic acid the way it's supposed to through the methylation cycle, and it goes down through like many different steps, but the most important step is that fifth step, which is the 5-MTHFR. That's that enzyme that's actually processing and making that folate go through so it can be methylated and your body can absorb it. So, and I know that there was a few people, like I said earlier, that already commented that they already had a blood test and that they knew that they were, they had the copy of it and that they had the more maybe risky type of it. So I just wanted to go into the different types of the MTHFR. So really you want to think about genes. You get one copy from your mom and you get one copy from your dad, obviously. So you have these two genes. So if one is actually has a gene mutation and the other one is a healthy one, you're considered heterozygous, which is exactly what I am. But if you have one copy that comes in from your mom and you have another copy that comes in from your dad, and they're both affected and there's a mutation with those, you are considered homozygous. And that actually is the one that has a little bit more risky, maybe more severe cases of developing into some things that are more serious that can happen in the body. So between those gene mutations, you're going to have different, what they're called snaps or SNPs. And so these SNPs come in two different versions. And so you're going to hear these different numbers and symbols, but basically just know there's two different SNPs. So one is the A1298 and the other one is the C677T. Now, all of this stuff that I'm talking about, you guys, there is research, there are publications all backing this up. So I'm not just like spitting out this information as if I haven't researched it myself. But all of this information, and I will tie it back at the end, one of the leading physicians that started up all of this research, and he's amazing at it, is Dr. Ben Lynch. And he heads up a website, seekinghealth.org, and then also MTHFR.net. And so again, I'll go over that at the end. But you guys, he has like over 4,500 medical research studies on there. A lot of them are PubMed. And so there's a whole list on that website that talks about exactly what I'm speaking to, so that you know I'm not just like spitting out mumbo jumbo to you guys, because I know this is not exactly nutrition or food based, but you know, sometimes you can research stuff for yourself and find out information that is vital. And that's something that I have done, especially since I have one of the copies. So going back to that discussion with the two different SNPs. So basically what they're saying is if you have even one copy, which they're saying 45% of the population has at least one of these copy in the gene mutation. So if you don't know, we're going to talk about how you can find that out. But that's pretty significant, I think, to have a 45% of the population that has one of these. And so if you are heterozygous and you have one of these copies, you basically are at a 40% loss of your function. So you're running at a 60% rate of having a proper methylation process and how your body can take something like folate or folic acid or folinic acid, and you can process it and your body will absorb it. So I'm going to get to how that affects you and what can happen to the body, but just know you're at a 40% loss. So that actually classifies, or I put myself in that classification. So I have a 40% loss. So right now I'm functioning at 60%. This isn't life-threatening. This isn't, something to be like alarmed or scared about once you become informed and once you get tested and once you know. I think it's the ones that actually don't know and you don't know how that affects your body that I think could be more risky for you considering health conditions and health issues. So if you have two copies, so if you're considered the homozygous, like we talked about earlier, where you have a gene mutation from your mom and your dad, and you're considered homozygous, you actually have a 70% loss of function in the way that you methylate and the way that you can process things. And so that is the more risky category to be in, which is what Dr. Ben Lynch discusses. And I think the most severe, he said, is if you have two copies of both of that C677T, that sets you up for a lot more health risk factors that you need to know about. And, obviously you can get some supplements and things like that we'll talk about, but that it does put you in a more risky category. And then also if you have one copy of the A1298 and one copy of the C677T, you're considered compound heterozygous and you have a 50% loss of function. So you're functioning off 50% at that point. Are there any questions so far? Sometimes I feel really weird just sitting here talking to my phone, but I like these live health chats. So that's really basically how those two little SNPs that they work. So let's get into what happens if you do have one of these gene mutations and it's not recognized and you're not treating it with something or you don't have a plan of action. So there are, again, in PubMed, over 4,500 studies, especially if you go through Dr. Ben Lynch and his website, he's amazing. But there are a lot of things that can happen to your body if you do not know that you have this, including pulmonary embolism, fibromyalgia, recurrent miscarriages, a lot of mood disorders, depression, cancer, cardiovascular risks, and then there's even things like autism and things like that for babies who have cleft palates. There's all these different things that are in this research that they're linking to so that you can find out if you guys do have one of those carriers. It also, the main thing that we want to talk about and how this affects your body is how you methylate. It affects your red and white blood cells. It affects your DNA production. It affects your DNA repair ability, which I think is huge. It also prevents like your neurotransmitters from happening and from firing off. So think about all those things that you guys, the mood disorders like the norepinephrine and the dopamine, serotonin and things like that. Those are linked to the mood disorders. And then obviously the big thing, you guys, is it links to your ability to detox. So the glutathione is really, really affected if you do have one of these copies or you have a gene mutation. That, to me, I think is the biggest takeaway that I would take from this. The glutathione is like, the mother of all antioxidants. It's like the thing that we really need to look at. And it's the thing that will take your body and make it to where it's detoxifying properly. And so that is really, really affected. And so the way that happens is when you have like this folic acid and it's going through the body in those steps like that we were talking about, it has to go through different levels and pass on to the next to reach that 5 MTHFR. So one of the things I mentioned in one of the categories of the health disorders or health disease is cardiovascular. So the cardiovascular is more related to the A1298 SNP or SNP. I keep saying SNP because I want to be like SNAP, but it's the SNP. And the reason that is because with this methylation, having that mutation, it affects your homocysteine. So your homocysteine, if it becomes too elevated, which means it's not cycling properly, it's all like dominoes, you guys. You got to think it's just like a domino effect. When one thing doesn't work, it goes to the next. So your homocysteine is actually the thing that can be scary if it's elevated, puts you at a higher risk for cardiovascular activity, events, and things like that. So I know in our family, we have that A1298 SNP. And so I know my mom has it, my brother has it, I have it. So if we were to trace it back, we don't know like if my grandma had it or if it was my grandpa that had it on my mom's side. But those things trigger down, and we do have in our family higher blood pressure that kind of comes up. And so some of that is linked, I believe, to the possibility of having that one SNP that has been passed down to, you know, from my mom to my brother and I. And so really the other issue that I was going to talk about with the folic acid and having this gene mutation is there are some things that can happen when you have this and the methylation process is going down, that there can be unmetabolized folic acid. So basically you want to think about something that's being collected where it's building up and it starts binding to other things. And the danger with that is there are studies now showing that it actually takes away and it prevents your natural killer cell activity, which you guys know is really essential to your immune function. So when you take away that, your immune system can crash really, really easily. You get sick, and then when you get sick, obviously things start to stem and go downward from there. So this whole process also is really important for your immune system, which, as you guys know, as a nutritionist, that is my big thing, is keeping your immune system strong and functioning properly. So that's a big key takeaway. The other thing I will say before we start talking about the rest of it is, you know, the big thing with the methylation process is if you are low in your B12, you have to have B12 that's at the sufficient level to meet that methylation so that you even can process the methylfolate. So even if you get a great form of natural folate that's actually methylated for your body, if you have this, if you don't have the proper functioning levels of B12, it's still not going to work the way that it should. So I just wanted to add that in there, that I had learned you have to have a good dose of your B12, and it has to be methylated B12. So methylcobalamin is really, really good. That's the other term name for it. And so you need the two to pair together to make the process work. So how do you know if you have this? Obviously, I just kind of ran across this when I was younger and went to a really great physician who was a naturopathic physician, also paired with an MD, which is really unusual that you come across those, but I did find her, and so she did the blood test. So what you need to do, I don't believe that everyone should just run out and be like, oh my gosh, do I have this gene mutation? I need to go get tested and freak out about it. What I do think you should maybe pay attention to, and again, my little disclaimer, I'm not your doctor, I'm not giving you advice, I'm not giving you medical information or directions of any kind. I'm sharing my experience and just simply sharing information for you. So that's my disclaimer. But you know, if you do suffer from any of those conditions I mentioned earlier, if you are having recurrent miscarriages, you are having cardiovascular issues, you have mood disorder, depression in your family, you have, I mean, it's so broad, you guys, that it's almost like if you have someone or a child with autism, if you have cancer, if you have fibromyalgia, if you have, there's so many different things now that is starting to form and function into this, that I think would be your reason to go ask your physician for a test. So you basically would just ask them, say you want to check for your MTHFR, the gene mutation, it's a blood test. Now, if your physician just looks at you like you're crazy and they're like, no, I'm not going to do it, know that there are test kits that you can actually order independently on your own, and actually a ton of people do this, and so you can do it that way. So some of the labs you can actually go through are SpectraCell, LabCorp, Quest, and then the big one is called 23andMe. That one, they spit out this huge genetic test back to you, so some people are kind of leery of that. And also it's a lot of information, so I tell people, you know, I would really, if you want to do the 23andMe, I would definitely make sure you have some sort of physician, whatever it may be, that knows how to read those lab results that you could speak with, so that you're not sitting there figuring it out all on your own and you're getting, you know, frustrated because there'll be a lot of codes and stuff. So some insurance companies, depending on who your insurance company is, might cover this. Now, the reason they might cover it is because if you have any of those underlying issues that I mentioned earlier, like health conditions, some insurance companies actually are taking that if you have that on record, and they will cover this test. Some other insurance companies will not. They might ask more questions. But if you cannot get your insurance to cover it, some of these tests are as cheap as around $150, and I think that that's minimal for finding out something that you might need to know within your own self. So again, those are SpectraCell, LabCorp, 23, it's just like the number 23andMe, and then the Quest. So those are where you can go to get that. And then there's certain things that I was gonna tell you guys that when I researched with Dr. Ben Lynch, you know, it's easy to say, okay, well, if I went and had the blood test and I do have this MTHFR mutation gene, I just need to take a supplement. Well, if you go to like even Target or Walmart or anything that's off the stores, anybody can call folate, you know, folate. Anybody can call folic acid and then in parentheses put folate. So you have to be really careful about the product that you're actually receiving. So there was 4 types that this physician, Dr. Ben Lynch, recommended as safe and quality supplements that you would use to supplement that or the gene mutation. So what I take is actually one of these. So the 4 categories, he says you want to make sure that there's an L in front of it to where it might say L-5 MTHFR or L-methylfolate, which means it's already methylated so your body can process it. Quattrofolic, which is actually what I take through a product through Zymogen. And then there's also 6S-5 methylfolate. I feel like that was way too sciencey for Facebook Live, but I had to give you what he recommended so that you know there's some good kinds and some bad kinds to go through. So just know that there are some independent places you can go. I go to a pharmacy here in Edmond called Innovative Pharmacy. I'm sure that there's pharmacies like Flourish and things like that that you could go to. And I think that even, I don't sell this, but I think even Plexus, like I know that they're a network marketing company that sells really good supplements. I think that their multivitamin actually has a methylated form of the MTHFR, one of the approved 4. So that's really cool. If you know somebody that does that, you might want to go contact them. Okay, so I will stop right there. I hope that I covered the basics of it, but just know the things and the questions I've asked. So sometimes in the mainstream media, they're not recognizing this. I don't understand why. I truly don't, because there's, like I said, 4,500 published research articles and publications in PubMed. And so I don't know if that just means it needs more time for people to pick up on it or get the information out there. But, you know, talk to your doctor about it and ask them. And if they are just completely like this to you and they don't even want to talk to you about it, then, you know, you can always go elsewhere and find out or order the labs on your own. But, you know, talk to your doctor about it and just see what they say. And hopefully they'll be willing to work with you. I know that I think it's the ACOG, their medical group says they don't really recognize this as an issue. And so just know sometimes you're going to run into that. And this is the information that's presented here for you. You can take with what you want with it. And that's pretty much it. So I would go to MTHFR MTHFR.net. I will go to that website. That is where Dr. Ben Lynch, he discusses it. He's just one of many, but I think he's like the key asset guy for this topic. He's done a lot of research. Go there, get on that website, scroll through. You're going to find every topic that I just discussed in a research journal article study that goes along with that, especially for the girls on here. I know that sometimes the discussion of recurrent miscarriages can be a really touchy and sensitive topic. And again, I'm not coming on here saying that this is the reason that's happening. I don't think that's wise at all to say that. I'm just saying there's definitely some studies there to link the situation or the condition to that. And so I think that that's important to open up our eyes and to look into, especially when it's going to come to the point of if you can't process folic acid, which is the one thing we need to have a healthy pregnancy and prevent neural tube defects. I think that's pretty essential to be able to dig in and research and find out if that's something that your body's not able to do. And so I felt that passionate about it when someone brought it up that I definitely wanted to answer it and do it on a Facebook Live, because I think that that's something that we should be talking about. And I think we should have open conversations like this. And especially when it comes to our health and it comes to things that could be leading to finding out better ways of living healthy. I feel like I talked a long time again. How many minutes did I just talk? If anybody could tell me. Again, I tried to make that fast, but are there any other questions? Thank you to both Jennifer and Jennifer for posting that information before I even spoke. You guys, this is more common than you would know and that you would even believe, actually. And so I love seeing that people are finding out, they're getting the blood work done, they're figuring out what method they want to go through and what supplements they need to take care of this. And as a holistic nutritionist, I will say the more leafy greens you guys eat, that's where folate comes from. So even if you think you don't like leafy greens, get them in your diet, because I promise, especially if you have this gene mutation, you need those leafy greens, but you also can't just do that. Like, you definitely need a supplement from the research that I am seeing and from the people that do talk about it. Amber's saying 27 minutes. Okay, that's not too bad, I guess. I feel like it's been like 45. Okay, you guys, that is about it. If you have any questions about this, feel free to message me. I just tried to do a big old live video so I could get it all out instead of messaging people differently or different times. So hopefully I kind of made it a little bit easy to understand, but just know, go get it tested if you feel like you need to, and research it, look at it. It's really interesting to find out, and I really feel like that it's important to know. And Anne's saying, I feel like I went to chemistry class. Yeah, I know. I tried I tried to not make it too sciencey, because I could start using some more terms that I really think people would just jump off. They'd be like, I don't want to be in a chemistry class. So thank you guys for joining. Hopefully it's explained enough. And Amber, you're very welcome. It is very interesting. I feel like it's something that should be talked a lot more about. And it deals with all sorts of things, you guys. How we process toxins in general is a big thing. So that is it. I am going. You guys are amazing. And again, message me if you have any questions. But that was the topic for tonight. And then I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.